At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce one of the interns in the apprenticeship program across the street at the Whaling Museum, Mr. Daniel Perry, who is also a student at Greater Bedford Vocational High School. He is leaving in his junior year to accept a full scholarship to Cornell. Additionally, his brother, who is a senior at Voc, is going to the Naval Academy. He's accepted a position at the Naval Academy. So without further ado, I give you Mr. Daniel Perry, who will read some excerpts from Moby Dick.
In New Bedford, fathers, they say, give whales for dowers to their daughters, and portion off their nieces with a few porpoises apiece. You must go to New Bedford to see a brilliant wedding, for, they say, they have reservoirs of oil in every house, and every night recklessly burn their lengths in spermaceti candles. In summertime, the town is sweet to see, full of fine maples, long avenues of green and gold. And in August, high in air, the beautiful and bountiful horse chestnuts, candelabra-wise, proffer the passer-by their tapering upright cones of congregated blossoms. So omnipotent is art, which in many a district of New Bedford has superinduced bright terraces of flowers upon the barren refuse of rocks thrown aside at creation's final day. In this same New Bedford there stands a whaleman's chapel, and few are the moody fishermen, shortly bound for the Indian Ocean or Pacific, who fail to make a Sunday visit to the spot. I am sure that I did not.
I would now like to have Ms. Terry Burnett, Executive Director of Whale, come up, say a few words.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to the Governor, Mass Cultural Council, and everyone for joining us on this really wonderful day. I am really humbled to be addressing you. Without Mass Cultural Council's Cultural Facilities Fund, the restoration of the two most culturally significant landmarks in New Bedford would not have happened. The Seamen's Bethel would not have been here in 5 years without these funds. And the Cultural Facilities Funds have restored many historic venues in the city, and we're hoping that they will restore many more. Whale has been extremely honored to be part of a great team for the past 3.5 years, led by Fred Toomey and Bruce Oliveira of the Port Society and the whole Port Society. It has been a wonderful and sometimes bumpy ride. Joe Booth, who's here, and R.P. Valois did an incredible job with the design and construction execution. Whale's role was historic consultant and finding the sources of funds and implementing the funds to make this $2.9 million restoration project happen. Last night at our annual meeting of Whale, attended by 150 people, Whale awarded the Port Society, and in particular Fred and Bruce, the highly honored Catherine Crapo Bullard Award for incredible, almost impossible restoration of landmarks in the city of New Bedford. It's now hanging because Fred and Bruce act so fast. It's now hanging in the salt box. I have to say, my office at Whale and myself have become great friends with Fred and Bruce, and it's just been a real pleasure to work with them. These guys are volunteers. They are here every day and they coordinated this whole project. So congratulations to the Port Society on this wonderful day.
All those nice accolades. Really, Mr. Governor, Mayor, state senators, representatives, thank you for being here today. Good afternoon and welcome to sunny New Bedford. Finally, today as we showcase the efforts of many public entities and private sector contributions, we recognize the importance of preserving a major part of New Bedford's proud history. The funding from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, the city's block grant program, has helped make this project a reality. In addition to these agencies, a capital campaign, and the many private contributors that gave to this project, the funding that was needed to be able to restore these two iconic structures for future generations to enjoy. The renovation of these buildings are significant to the history of New Bedford and will provide educational opportunities and cultural awareness to residents and visitors alike. I'm old, I need some notes. The new exhibits being displayed in the Mariners' Home, along with the Seamen's Bethel artifacts, provide a true example of what life was like in New Bedford during the 19th century. So today I reach out as president of the Bedford Port Society to say thank you to Governor Charlie Baker, state legislatures, the mayor, and the Massachusetts Cultural Council for assisting us and to preserve a small but very proud piece of New Bedford's historic past. And at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the mayor of our great city, Mr. John Mitchell.
So every time I'm up here, I wonder how Orson Welles fit in the 1956 movie. Well, welcome everybody. I always love speaking from the pulpit here, as much as I try to honor the separation of church and state. It's still pretty fun. Now, we have another event right outside tomorrow, and you know, although tomorrow I will confess I'll probably repeat those things that bear repeating, I'll try to say something different, and that's a way of encouraging all of you to come back tomorrow and see the real ribbon cutting. But we're here today to celebrate all the terrific support that we've gotten for this project over the years. And so I do want to offer some thanks to a few individuals, and I won't do everybody justice. I'll try to do that tomorrow, but I do want to single out Fred Toomey and Bruce Oliveira for their labor of love. I mean, what they brought to this project was a lot of skill, a lot of sophistication, but more than anything else, passion, and it shows. I mean, this is a building that we here in New Bedford are really proud of, you know, and if you had to say, if there's one building you have to fix up in New Bedford, I think most people in the community would say, yeah, it's the Seamen's Bethel, right? It's so central to this place's identity. And Bruce and Fred and so many others, the Port Society, Whale, all the benefactors, many of whom are here today, too many to name, you deserve a tremendous amount of credit for not only restoring this building, which was on the cusp, literally on the cusp of disintegration, and those guys will be happy to give you chapter and verse on just how badly things were, how bad the structure had become in this building, but also just restoring a real big part of New Bedford's identity. So Bruce and Fred and everybody else, thank you for all the work that you've done and the tremendous commitment. And really, as I look across the audience, there are lots, we could spend a lot of time thanking people who really deserve it. And we'll try to add some more names in tomorrow's ceremony. But I do really want to thank Governor Baker for coming here today and showing his support for this project. He fully realizes and appreciates the importance of this building to this city and this region, and for his commitment to the arts and cultural facilities in the state. So, Governor, thank you for all that you do. In addition, there are a number of elected officials here today, many folks from the State House who have had our back and have had the promotion of the arts first and foremost in their minds when it comes to funding during budget time. Bob Kazera, Paul Schmidt, Carol Fiola. I hope I'm not missing anybody here today, but thanks, guys, for really stepping up. We really appreciate it. And I want to say thanks to the Cultural Council. I'm going to get a chance to introduce Anita in a second, and I look forward to her remarks, but we've had a terrific working relationship with the MCC over the years, and it's been this place most prominently, but so many other things, the Art Museum, the Zeiterion, so many other facilities that are key to our vitality in ways that are discernible and sometimes hard to discern, but in all places that require funding to keep going and to keep alive. And you guys have filled the gap in more ways than one, financially and otherwise, and have drawn attention to those things in the state, and especially here in New Bedford, that needed just a little bit of a hand to reactivate, and that's been happening all over the place. And in this particular temple of our history, as much as any. So thank you, Anita. Thank you to all the members of the council. Mary Jenkins, who we've had tremendous success with, all of you for stepping up. Barbara Grossman and everybody else on the board, thank you for your support. For this particular project, this is, again, it bears emphasizing that this was a beacon to the folks that went out and engaged in the most American of professions. Yankee whaling was the quintessential American enterprise. I mean, think about it. Think about the audacity it took to go out onto the high seas in wooden vessels and hunt the largest creatures in the sea with hand weapons, right? I mean, these guys had some guts. And that legacy has shaped this city from its origins, and we're very proud of that. And it has played another big role. It is also in many ways a memorial to another industry that whose courage has been exemplified again for an awfully long time in the city, and that's commercial fishing. So as you look around at the beautiful restoration of the cenotaphs as well as everything else, I mean, it's just so beautifully done. It means a lot to folks in our city that everything was done just so, and that's what we're trying to do in the city. We're trying to really elevate the standards of professionalism, but also design, and we honor those things. Now, paraphrase Plato, you will honor those things that you commit yourself to. I think I'm butchering what he said, but basically, people who walk into this building will say the city really cares about itself. The city really cares about those things, about its legacy and who it is. And identity counts for so much these days, especially in an America that's becoming more and more homogenized as time goes on. New Bedford is different. New Bedford is a special place, and one of the things that makes it special is this particular building. And frankly, I would be remiss if I didn't say that at a personal level, as somebody whose grandfather is on this cenotaph, it means a lot to the families of fishermen who've been lost at sea that this place was so lovingly restored. It means a lot to a lot of the folks who've lost loved ones, and so that counts for an awful lot too. So it doesn't happen all of it doesn't happen unless people come together financially and otherwise to devote themselves to a cause like this, and that's what the Mass Cultural Council is about, and we thank you guys profusely. Anita, you've done wonders for the Mass Cultural Council. You have spearheaded so much here in New Bedford, and we can't thank you enough for that. And we've got more projects in mind, so we won't talk about those Today, far be it from me to be shy about such things, but we'll hold off for a day. But Anita Walker has been a tremendous leader for the Mass Cultural Council, and I just ask you to come on up and say a few words, Anita. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Governor, for being here today. I want to thank the legislators who have joined us. And I want to thank so many members of the Mass Cultural Council. We have spent the day here in New Bedford. We had our council meeting right across the street. Nina Fialco, our chair, Barbara Grossman, our vice chair, and the rest of our council is sitting right here in the two front rows. So those seeking more checks, you can just meet with them a little bit later. I also want to call out Jay Paget. He and I have both been at the Mass Cultural Council 10 years, and coincidentally, it is 10 years ago when we launched the Cultural Facilities Fund. And today, we not only celebrate a 10-year anniversary, but we celebrate $100 million of investment in the cultural landscape of Massachusetts. So if you want to know a little bit about the power of culture, you're sitting in the midst of it. I can't think of a better place for this celebration because you are sitting in the very spot that Herman Melville conceived of one of the greatest works of literature of our time, of all time, Moby Dick. The first draft is on that cenotaph right there. Read it, and you'll see the outline of that great work of literature. Preserving our authentic, special, unique, and real culture in Massachusetts is really what the Cultural Facilities Fund is all about. You know what? We spend a lot of money on HVAC systems and roofs and septic tanks, I'm talking to you, Double Edge Theater, and things that aren't terribly glamorous, things you can't hang a plaque on, things that are hard to raise money for. But this little bit of money from the Cultural Facilities Fund is preserving the most important enduring treasures that exist here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The fact of the matter is, without the Cultural Facilities Fund, you may not be sitting in this building. You may not be in the very place where Herman Melville conceived of Moby Dick. We like to talk about the numbers because the numbers are important. So what did $100 million attract? 2.6 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars of additional investment into this work. 700 projects in every corner of the Commonwealth. 23,000 jobs in construction, design, architecture, engineering. More than 2,000 permanent jobs left in the wake in these cultural organizations. This little bit of money from the state has leveraged enormous resources in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But you know what? That's not all it takes to make these things happen. That's not all it took to make this happen. It takes money, it takes resources, but it takes a lot of passion, a lot of determination, a lot of grit, and a lot of perseverance. And if you doubt for a minute how much love is invested in these projects, you just look in the eyes of Bruce and Fred, and you'll know. So I want to thank all of you who have been so much a part of making these projects come to life for future generations. And it is my privilege and honor now to introduce Governor Baker, who has shown his commitment to this work as well.
Pretty scary space up here. And I do get a huge kick out of the fact that this is a great example of seriously, life imitating art, because this particular prow, I believe, was in the 1956 John Huston film, and it was at that point in time that the folks in New Bedford decided they needed to make the real story look a little bit like the one in the movie, so when people came here looking for it, they'd be able to see it. Anita went through most of the facts and figures, so I'm not going to bore you with all of those and repeat them all over again, except to say that the Mass Council Facilities Fund has been a tremendously powerful way for us to leverage investments across the Commonwealth for all kinds of really important local endeavors and projects. And I do want to note that Nina Fialco, who's the chair of the Mass Cultural Council, and Barbara Wallace-Grossman, who's the vice chair, are both here with you today. It speaks to some extent to how important this is to all of us. And Marty Jones from Mass Development, who's the executive director there, is also here. To the members of the state legislature, Representative Kazera and Representative Smith and Representative Fiol, I just have to say to you guys, the senator is not here. He apologizes. I talked to him on my way down here. He was a little beside himself about the fact that he couldn't come because he really loves this project and obviously loves this kind of investment in the city of New Bedford. But the Senate budget process starts on Monday, and they're doing a tremendous amount of work preparing for that today. But it's good to see the House is well represented, and I plan to keep that in mind the next time we make some decisions when it comes to the city of New Bedford. And Mr. Mayor, it's always great to see you. This is not on the script anywhere, but as I listen to Mayor Mitchell talk about Alexander Mitchell, who's on this wall here, I couldn't help but think that we're a week away from Memorial Day, and I live on a street called Monument Ave in Swampscott. Believe me, this is going to go someplace that's going to make sense, I promise. If you go, and people, a lot of times people just come and look at the monuments. It starts with the Civil War at one end of the street, and it goes all the way down the far end of the streets where World War II is, but they're all there, Vietnam and the War on Terror and Operation Desert Storm and World War I. And if you go and you look at the names on those memorials, you know, they are the families of Swampscott. I mean, I know in some cases I know the mothers and the dads and the brothers and the sisters, and in some cases I know the children, the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren of the names that are on those plaques and those memorials. And if you go to Gloucester, there's a sundial along the ocean front there, and my family lived in Rockport for a bunch of years, and the names on that sundial are absolutely the names of the families from generation to generation in Gloucester. And I am quite sure that the names here that have been restored and preserved for all to see are in fact the names of the families of New Bedford from generation to generation to generation. And with those names come stories, come oral history, and come something that's way more important than a name or a statistic, which is a set of values and traditions that get carried on from one generation to the next and are sort of fundamental to how people think about and believe in the community that they tend to be part of. And I can't tell you how important I think it is that the names here, as the mayor pointed out, I mean, these people were out there with bow lines, small boats, harpoons. I mean, I just can't even, I was literally thinking to myself as I was looking at some of the displays around here, it's a miracle they ever caught one. I mean, in those situations, the animals had it all over them. But I think for today, my major message to all of you is we are an historic state, okay? By world standards, we may be relatively new, but by the standards of the United States of America, we represent sort of how it all started from the beginning. And the stories associated with that and the history that's attached to that and the lessons to be learned from it are incredibly important to maintaining sort of a sense about who we are and what we're ultimately all about. And I think in many ways, we lose that if we don't hold on to the names and the monuments and the other elements that remind us over and over and over again of those who came before us and whose shoulders we all sit on. And I think this particular facility, given what it is, what it's represented, and what it was all about, it's a little bit of the heartbeat and the soul of New Bedford for generations. And it's a real tribute to all of you and to the role that the city and the state and so many others played in making sure that the lessons and the stories and the values and the traditions that are part of this will be here for generation after generation. Congratulations and thank you.
Governor, we forgot one thing. We forgot one number. You know, every year when the governor puts out his capital plan, my staff digs into the capital plan. I saved that one for you.
You took so many of the other ones.
Well, listen to this. This year, the governor has put in his capital plan $10 million for the Cultural Facilities Fund for next year. I just want to call out a couple of other people. Jessica Pinho is from Rep. Cabral's office. He could not be with us today, but he is another great champion up at the State House on behalf of the Mass Cultural Council and the Cultural Facilities Fund. We also have in the room Matt Wilson, who is Mass Creative, leads the charging forces. You probably hear from him once in a while, Governor and legislators. Mass Creative is a great voice on behalf of the arts and culture. And the Cultural Facilities Fund is really a partnership with Mass Development, partner agency, and Marty Jones is here as well to make a few remarks.
Thank you, and what a treat to be here this afternoon with all of you to celebrate the reopening of this historic building and also the 10th anniversary of the Cultural Facilities Fund. All of our Cultural Facility Fund events have taken us around the Commonwealth to some amazing landmarks. We've been to museums and art centers and on schooners and in aquariums. And I can't say that it was on my bucket list, but I am incredibly honored to have the opportunity to be in this place with all of you this afternoon. Quite an amazing place. I hope that all of you know that Mass Development and the Mass Cultural Council co-administer the fund together. It's a great partnership drawing on the strengths of both of our agencies, the incredible creative knowledge about all the cultural institutions from the Cultural Council, and Mass Development's hardcore nuts and bolts construction and grants management that actually get the money to work and help all of you complete those construction projects, however big or small they might be. Just to be precise in our Mass Development way, it's $101 million in 772 separate grants. And the statistic that I think is pretty telling, nearly 24,000 architects, engineers, contractors, and construction workers involved in all of these projects around the Commonwealth. As an economic development agency, those numbers are incredibly important to me and to our team because this sector of the economy is really important to our continued economic growth day in and day out. I do want to thank Governor Charlie Baker and the administration as a whole and also the legislature for their ongoing commitment to supporting the Cultural Facilities Fund. As you know, it takes a partnership on Beacon Hill as well, and the governor and the leadership of the legislature have an incredible track record of working very well together to make things like this happen. So it's very important to all of us for the fund and other programs to drive the economy forward. I do also want to thank Anita. You have been a great partner. Your team is fantastic to work with. And Lillian Munoz, our Cultural Facilities Fund Portfolio Manager, who's here and will be working with all of you and have worked with you to get the money to work on the street. It's a great partnership. We look forward to many more. We're thrilled to hear about $10 million on an ongoing basis for this year. And thanks again for having me.
So there's just one other thing, Governor, I wanted you to know. This isn't everybody who's received the Cultural Facilities Fund. These are just the people we could fit in here. So we're going to be having a few more of these events rolling out over the next few weeks. And if you want to meet everybody, we would love to have you come along. But in the meantime, thank you on behalf of the Mass Cultural Council for all of your work and dedication. You make Massachusetts a greater place. We would love to have you join us downstairs for a little refreshments and camaraderie. Again, thank you for coming.
New Bedford Cable Network. Public, educational, and government access. Channel 95 is public access. Channel 9 is educational access. Channel 18 is government access. New Bedford Cable Network. We're more than you know us for.
There are oceans and rocks, places where fish swim and birds fly, where mountains spring up and trees and grass grow all around. History is made, art is created, things happen that should always be remembered. Heroes emerge. A woman sets people free. A man makes light. A leader steps forward. People get together. They help each other out. They make their own places to run and play and contemplate the universe. There's pride and gratitude and fun. It belongs to everyone. It can be a place, a feeling, a state of mind. So get up, get out there, and find your part.